No, you came here. You do yours.
With that then.
No, this is your phone. No, you do yours. Why you coming? If you ain't gonna use yours?
No, how can I get the questions? On live stream. No, I'm.
I use mine. No problem. Say the one.
خلاص.
No, please, I don't think you want to live stream with that.
نعم.
لا تحتاج. شوف.
برون.
لا تحتاج.
برون. I can upload to Q&A. إن شاء الله. برون.
نوصل للإخوان والأخوات.
ما لهم؟
نوصل للإخوان والأخوات.
نختار من هنا ومن هناك. ننوع. Subhanallah. Bolowides. Subhanallah. I can't explain. Bolowides, Sheikh.
I was telling this brother right here how you just
Alhamdulillah. It's from Allah.
he just
Alhamdulillah. You gotta keep the floor, Sheikh. Alhamdulillah. What kind of tea? That's a long discussion. You got people in line that's waiting to know the recipe. Seriously. Inshallah. Maybe one day. So all types of teas I like. It's not just one type. My favorite, oolong. Oolong tea. Chinese. Oolong. It's not green, it's not black. It's a type by itself. Oolong. No doubt. Oolong is one of my favorites.
I got no shoes.
Try it out. No, it's black tea, green tea, and then it's oolong. Oolong is a brand, a type by itself.
Yeah. You need this fire?
No, I'm good. Shukran.
Make sure they can hear
Yo, come here.
I'm a certified English teacher. Certified. Pronouncing everything. I'm saying there, not there. Not there. Not over there. Over there. Over there.
Now I'm gonna be in trouble. Now I'm gonna be late. You.
Bismillah.
It was that.
ready. I'm ready.
You know, first of all,
Yeah, we should someone on the floor first. Let's go. Bismillah. Zaid.
So Hela from Philly
You
has.
got your phone?
Can one retake?
Just let me know when you're ready. Fadl. Whenever you're ready.
Can one?
Zaid. You got a cord?
Yeah.
Can one retake their shahada? And if a child is born into Islam, do they have to take their shahada?
We answered that one in the book signing. It was a question of a younger sister. Two young sisters.
Are us sisters able to wear nails?
Can a sister wear nails? No Muslim woman should wear nails. As we said about hair, enhancing and extending hair, be pleased with what Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you. There's no need for you to extend your nails, let alone the problem of extending the nails. How many things will come in between you, such as wudu, such as certain issues of hygiene, and other things as well, with very long nails. All right? As far as if a woman was not offering the salah, she was menstruating, and she wore nails for a short or limited period of time, that's one thing. That's one thing. Allah knows best.
Please explain the permissibility on working for health insurance on a health insurance company, even knowing that in general insurance is haram.
It's just like many other things that we do for a living, in which you're not necessarily touching the haram or dealing with it directly, but you're involved in a system. And on one scale or another, the system needs you. The system needs you. Let's say, for example, if a person works for a sanitation, he's not necessarily supporting a church or a casino or another place of haram, but can the casino remain open if the trash is piled up on the sidewalk? Can their customers come drink and gamble if there's nowhere for them to throw out their trash and put out their cigarettes? Whether he realizes it or not, directly or indirectly, he's a part of a bigger system. Even though he's not involved with the casino, I pick up trash from this place or that place. It doesn't matter, without any discrimination. But for sure, he stops and picks up the trash and the dumpster and the garbage from the casino, without a question. And the casino cannot properly function without that waste and that rubbish being what? Removed. Just like when people go on strike. They go on strike. And the purpose of going on strike is to break the business. You can't survive if we don't pick up the trash, if your water is not on, if your electricity is not on. So therefore, if we take the principle that anything and everything that's involved, directly or indirectly, is haram, then how many of us will have jobs on a daily basis? Driving a tow truck. You drive a tow truck. You tow cars. What's haram about that? But you get a phone call from a casino. And it's on your GPS, the name of the casino. You get a phone call, it's a club. Let's say it's a homosexual club, a nightclub. And it tells you on the GPS, the location. And you have to remove a car or a truck from in front of that location. What can you say? I can't remove it? I can't take the car? I can't do it? Everyone understand this? So the point is that we have to just be mindful. We have to be what? Mindful. Certain things which are directly attached to the haram, for sure. Things which are indirectly attached to the haram, we may say what? Possibly we have to be careful. All right? So insurance, without a doubt, has certain elements in it which is clearly haram. And there are other elements in insurance which are doubtful and may not necessarily be haram. And there are other elements of insurance which are totally permissible. Which are what? Totally permissible. Last but not least is, we cannot demonize someone who works for an insurance company or someone who has house insurance or business insurance, but you yourself have car insurance. Your car is insured. If you're pulled over on the side of the road, license, registration, you have to show them your insurance card. And if you don't, you're going to have a serious problem with that officer, unless he or she is in a good mood that night. So we have to be consistent. Is it a necessity to drive? Are there people living in certain countries that do not drive? And how long do they live? Some people in the Far East, they live for 90 years, 100 years, and they've never ever been behind the wheel of an automobile. So what is the delil that having car insurance is permissible, but not health insurance? And if it's permissible to have insurance, or if it's haram but a necessity, then obviously people are going to need to manage that system. They're going to need to manage that system. Insurance company is nothing without the office. And that's why you find different insurance companies have big, high towers. You ever ask yourself, why is it so big? Why is the building so big for Comcast? Or for this insurance place? Why is it like that? Because those are thousands and millions of people calling, complaining, writing, employees, checks, so on. It's a system. And without that system, there would be no insurance when you go to the doctors. Everyone understand this? So we've explained this many times. And the only point that I'm trying to get across is that we have to be extremely careful when we say that a job is haram. We have to be extremely careful. And Allah knows best.
Should we make istikhara before we accept certain invitations, even if it involves that which is halal, but the person extending the invitation is known for fitna?
Perhaps. Maybe. Perhaps. Istikhara is not used for every single thing. Istikhara is used for certain things at certain times. But not everything. Certain things you don't necessarily have to make istikhara. Or you make an istikhara, but it doesn't have to be the actual salat and istikhara. You can ask Allah for guidance. You can sit down and think about it and meditate on it, ponder and reflect on what's in the Quran and the Sunnah, what Allah gives you of your gut feeling, your intuition. Or you may have to prioritize. Brother Fulan invited me, that's his haqq upon me, even though there's some fitna there, but I have something which is more important and more obligatory. So it depends on the situation. Obviously it's not going to hurt you if you did it. And Allah knows best.
Can you shed some light on the narration of Abbas regarding Salatul Tasbih, being that the scholars differ whether it should be acted upon or not?
Shedding light, any issue over which the ulama of Islam and Hadith differ, then there are always going to be ground principles. The first ground principle is sticking with the asl, the default ruling. How many prayers are there during the day? 5 or maybe 6. It may be a 6th prayer. Witr may be obligatory. This salat may be, but no, we know for sure that there are 5. That's yaqeen, that there are 5. So you stick with the asl. You stick with safety and precaution. And this is one of the most important guiding principles for a layman Muslim. Da' ma yaribuka ila ma la yaribuka. Leave off that which causes you to have doubt. Stay away from it. If you yourself can research and you find that it is authentic, then do it. And if you can't research and the scholars differ, then you avoid it. And take the view of the scholar that you trust the most and you feel is the closest upon the truth. And Allah knows best. This with regards to Salat al-Tasbih or any other issue of which the ulama differ on the hadith being authentic or not. The fiqh ruling being obligatory or not. وَهَكَذَا. Wallahu a'lam.
What is the strongest view of the scholars in regards to wearing the face veil?
The strongest view is relative, brothers and sisters. That's relative. Allahu a'lam, what's the strongest view? Strong to Shafi'i may not be the strongest view to Ahmed. Strongest view to Bin Baz may not be the strongest view to Al-Albani. That's relative. My personal opinion, one thing. This scholar's personal reservation, one thing. But what is the strong? Allahu a'lam. When it's an issue which is so fierce. As far as an issue which the dalil is clearly weak, it's overwhelming proofs and evidences, then that's a different story. That's a qawl marjuh. We say that view is very, very weak. It's not substantial at all. But that's not on an issue in which it's substantial proof and substantial scholars on both sides. And one of the proofs behind it being substantial is that it is an issue that is so widespread and an issue that is ancient and present. If it was that clear and simple, then they wouldn't be what? Different over it. If it was that simply, a piece of cake, like people try to make these different issues to be. All right? However, one could possibly say, from just common sense, if you said to a brother, I want you to find me a wife, or Mufti, find me a wife. Find me a wife. You say, inshallah, I want the wife to be pretty. I'm not a shallow brother, but I want a pretty wife. There's nothing wrong with that. What's the first thing that I want to think about? Her toes. Of course, that's the first thing that's going to come to your mind is her face. Her body type. Her first thing you want to think about is face. First thing. So if that's the center of a woman's beauty and attraction, then there are many ulama who say it's only common sense for the center, not a part of the attraction, a major part. No, the center, the sun of the universe. That's the center of her beauty and her zina. Why would it not be covered? All right? So this is a long difference of opinion among the ulama of Islam. My advice is to cover your hands and face. Even if it's not obligatory, do it. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to kill you. It's only closer to piety. Closer to piety. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And Allah knows best.
What would you advise if a person always finds themselves alone in various circumstances, even when they didn't want or intend to be?
Inshallah ta'ala, if you want to be around the righteous believers and the pious believers, not only will you find them, but they'll find you. They'll find you. If you put yourself, quote unquote, in the right place at the right time, the people will find you. You don't have to be a perfect person, but just basic good character, good behavior, being friendly, people will gravitate towards you. They'll gravitate towards you. And there's no doubt when you come to the masjid, how many brothers do you meet at the masjid? How many sisters do you meet at a conference? You're sitting there reading a book, a sister offering you some coffee or some tea. A brother gives you a hand and says, "Assalamu alaikum, I'm brother Fulan from such and such state and city." You meet. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science at all. It's not rocket science at all. It's very simple and very easy. And Allah knows best.
Is it permissible for a man to take a second wife if he is not working or providing for the first wife?
The man, الرجال قوامون على النساء. The Prophet ﷺ in Hadith of Anas radiallahu anhu, Sahih Muslim and others, it tells us that towards the end of time, there will be a widespread ignorance, and there will be scarce knowledge, and there will be mass consumption of alcohol. The Hadith says, وَيَكْثُرُ النِّسَاء, and there will be abundant women, حَتَّى يَكُونَ لِلْقَيِّمِ الْوَاحِدِ. He says so much that there will be, for one qayyim, 50 women under one qayyim. So that's the Quran, الرجال قوامون على النساء, and that's the authentic sunnah, that the man is the provider, the protector, and the maintainer. The protector, the provider, the maintainer, the sustainer of the woman, according to his means, as Allah mentions in Surah Al-Baqarah, according to his means. So to get a second wife, it does not mean that you have to be rich and wealthy, and that you have to have every single thing. It does not mean that. Everyone understand this? But you have no source of income, no job. You're not doing anything, selling oils, selling bean pies, doing nothing. And you take on a second and a third and a fourth wife, that's clearly problematic. That's clearly problematic. However, as I said to you before, many women, they make many mistakes against themselves. And then they try to find a convenient answer in the polygamy now. When you married your husband, he wasn't paying all of your bills. He did not buy the car. It was not his house. You were living with him, etc., etc., etc. And you accepted that. And you lived with that. And everything was fine and peachy. The moment another woman comes into the picture, give me all of my rights. Give me all my money. You're this, you're that. You're not a provider. The system is not made to be conveniently picked up and put down. We don't cherry pick the deen. Your husband was supposed to be your breadwinner, your hunter, and your gatherer from day one. Everyone understand this? So the concept of, I'll be patient with you not having no money, but not another woman. That's partially right, and that's partially wrong. You understand this? Because you don't mind him not having all the money. You just mind him sleeping with another woman. That's the top and the bottom line. The top and the bottom line. A man, he promises a woman a big mahar. He doesn't give all of the mahar. She'll be married for 5 and 10 years. The moment he says a second wife, you didn't pay my mahar. You didn't give me the rest of my mahar. How long did he not give you your mahar, sister? So a woman coming into the picture, that's the problem. Not him not having money and being a bum. That was never a problem. We have to be realistic. We have to be realistic. Last but not least is, if you marry a second woman or second wife or a third wife, they're different situations. There's some women who have money. That's not the default, but she may say, I don't need you to do this. I need a husband. I need a friend. I need a companion. I need halal love. This is real. Everyone has different situations. She may be older, she may be younger, she may be a widow. She may say, I can't leave my mother's house, I have to take care of my mother. I'm her nurse, but I still have times in which I need and want a husband. But please don't, I'm not going to be under you all day. I can't serve you tea and give you a foot massage. But we have our time together. This is when I can see you, this is when you can see me, and we get along. Everyone understand this? So every situation is different. And as I said to you, you got to be real. You got to be honest. If you have that type of brother, alhamdulillah. If you don't have that type of brother, and that's what you picked, alhamdulillah. But you have to be mindful of the situation that you get yourself involved in. And the same applies to brothers. You marry a sister and you know she wasn't studious. You know she wasn't that religious. You marry her only for her beauty. You marry her for her money. You marry her for her family name. Now you want her to be this pious, righteous, witted, praying handmaiden of Allah. And she was never, ever that from day one. She was never a handmaiden. Never. She was a beauty queen. That's what you wanted, and that's what you got. So we have to be honest with ourselves, okay, guys? And Allah knows best.
Is it permissible to get burial insurance?
What's that voice? What's the question?
Is it permissible to get burial insurance? If not, what are the options? Because a lot of people are having a hard time burying their family members.
Allah guide you.
You're supposed to record, not play.
I mean, say I mean.
Ameen.
What's the question?
Is it permissible to get burial insurance? If not, what are the options? Because there are a lot of people having a hard time burying their family members.
Crystal clear, like we just said about car insurance. What makes car insurance permissible, but burial insurance haram? What's the difference? Do you have to drive, or is it not public transportation? Trains, buses, trolleys? Is it not Uber? Do you have to have your own car? Is that the most economic, efficient way of traveling, driving in traffic? Parking? How much does it cost to park downtown, Sheikh? At the hospital? They charge you an arm and a leg. Everyone understand this? Is that the best thing for the environment? 50 cars on the road, 100 cars on the road, no one's carpooling. Is that the best thing for the economy? Us being addicted to gasoline like a drug. Everyone understand this? This is a bigger picture now. There are 50 cars of one single drivers. How much gasoline are we spending? How much import are we? Is that the best way of traveling? Obviously, you can make an argument that you driving individually isn't the what? Isn't the what? It isn't the best way of traveling. So if it's not the best way of traveling, is it a necessity? How many times it's not a necessity? You only have your car for luxury and convenience. So if it is not a necessity, what makes it halal to pay insurance? Where is the dalil that it's halal now? Burial insurance, haram. Life insurance, haram. House insurance, haram. Business insurance, haram. All of that's haram, but not for a car. You live out in a rural area, different story. You have to drive. The closest convenience store is 10 miles down the road. That's a different story, maybe. And even then, people lived without cars for many years. So if it is a necessity, and if it is a need, even if it is a necessity but a strong need, then perhaps some of those doubtful things or some of those haram things from time to time could become permissible in certain instances. And if we don't give these details, then we're going to be very hypocritical. We're going to be what? Very hypocritical. Making Hajj and Umrah, as I said, with the passport is permissible. Taking a picture is haram. How many times have you made Hajj, Yahi? You made Hajj in 1990. And ever since 1990, every year you go on Hajj and Umrah twice, at least twice. You're using your picture, your images, every time you enter and exit that country. Every time you enter and exit that country. You need a visa every time you go into that country. Pictures are haram. You've made the Hajj, you've made the Umrah, your passport is supposed to be what by now? In half in the trash. Double standard now. Make sense or not? Can you go into Saudi without a passport? Can you tell them to tasbih haram? You cannot. You must have pictures. It is not a necessity to make Hajj and Umrah every single year. So the fiqh has to be consistent. That's what we learn from the fuqaha. As the brother said, he says the Hanbali madhab is mundabit. Allahu Akbar. Nice question.
When a person is following the imam, are they supposed to repeat the Fatiha aloud, or are they supposed
If
to
you're praying behind the imam, the safest thing to do is to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. That's the safest thing. The opinion, to me, that's the strongest. It makes the most sense is to remain silent. To remain silent. If it's a prayer that's done audibly. Salat al-Jumu'ah, al-Eid, Fajr, Isha, Maghrib. Once the imam makes his takbir, don't say anything behind the imam. But that's not necessarily the safest view. The safest view is to at least recite the Fatiha. And obviously there are many problems with that. When do you recite the Fatiha? Before the imam, with the imam, after the imam. If the Imam has done, he says, غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ آمِينَ. He says, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, and you recite Surah Al-Fatiha. What's the purpose of him reciting Surah and you reciting Fatiha? Doesn't make sense. But that's not necessarily the precaution. And Allah knows best. That's a long discussion of fiqh among the ulama of Islam. The Hanbalis have a what? Strong position regarding that. Fahadda.
What are we supposed to say during the halfway point of a khutbah?
You don't have to say anything. You don't have to say anything. Sit there. Is there a hadith instructing you what to say? Is there a hadith that says say this and say that? But we have to be fair, we have to be just. When you're growing up as a young Muslim, and you go to the local masjid, of course the Imam, he sits between the two khutbahs and he cups his hands and he makes dua. Right? And everyone in the crowd, they all what? They do the same as well. So one aspect you're going to say this is bid'ah. It's haram. But from another aspect, the only reason why they're making dua is because what? During Friday, there's a what? Sa'atul Ijabah. There's an hour in which no prayer will be rejected. There's an hour in which what? No prayer will be rejected. So do they have a specific proof to do that? Not necessarily. But is the act totally baseless? Not necessarily. So at worst you may say this Imam is mistaken. But to say he's an innovator and he's practicing bid'ah and it's a total deviant, we say no, don't do that. Because they do have a general proof that they are using. And there are many other issues on Yawm al-Jum'ah that is a tug of war between general proofs. Such as, can you say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? When the Imam mentions the Prophet, can you say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the crowd? Why can't you? Why would someone say that you can't? Because what? You're not allowed to speak, and saying sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is what? It's speech. And from another aspect, another side of generality, when the Prophet's name is mentioned, it's a good thing to do what? Say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So it can go more than one way. So at the end of the day, when the Imam has finished the first khutbah, I don't know of a specific dalil that's authentic that raise your hands and make dua. But if someone based it off of the generality of making dua during Jumu'ah, and I'm no longer listening to the Imam because he's keeping silent now, one could possibly say that. And Allah knows best.
What is the proper way to pray istikhara? How do you know the answer is yes or no?
The proper way of making an istikhara is, how do you feel before you make the istikhara? There's a sister that I want to marry. I want to marry the sister. I'm going to make istikhara for insurance and for protection, for insulation. Something that I can't see or that's beyond my limited knowledge as a human being. That's one thing. I'm going to make salat al-istikhara and I'm totally unsure. Or I'm going to make salat al-istikhara and I don't want to do it, but it may be good for me. There are three different scenarios. As far as the first scenario, I want to marry the sister. I pray salat al-istikhara. There isn't a condition that something has to come from heaven. That there's some type of sign that is sent down by Allah. No. You wanted to marry her, nothing has changed. Bismillah, marry her. It's just that simple. If you've made the istikhara and you're still in doubt, then you have to wait until you get something to tip the scales. Everyone understand this? If you didn't want to do it, and you made salat al-istikhara, and there's nothing that's changed or happened afterwards, you stay away from it. Why can that? It's that simple. And Allah knows best.
What hadith speaks about resurrection? And what is resurrection?
What hadith speaks about resurrection, and what is resurrection? There are many hadiths that talk about resurrection. Tons of them that talk about reality of resurrection, life, death, the grave, barzakh, adhab al-qabr, people coming out of their graves, that everyone will pass out and fall out, and the first person to wake up, the first person to regain consciousness will be me, and then I will look at Musa alayhi salatu wasalam grabbing hold to the arsh of ar-Rahman subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that Musa did what? He was resurrected, or he came up conscious before the Prophet. And there are countless hadiths about resurrection. Resurrection is simple and easy. Simple and easy. There's life that's given to you, there's life that's taken away from you, and there's life given to you once more. Resurrection is like farming. You work, you sow your seeds, you sweat, you bend your back, and you wait for some time, and then on the day of harvest, you see how good and how thorough your work was, or how bad it was. Did you salvage his property? Was there enough water? Was it good black soil? Were there pesticides, weeds, etc.? You get what you put in. That's resurrection. You get to see what you've waited for all of that time. Good or bad. It's just that simple. And Allah knows best.
Will Allah accept your prayers if you weren't able to make wudu before it?
Will Allah accept your prayers if you weren't able to make wudu? The general concept is that salah without wudu is invalid. Prayer without wudu is invalid. And if the act of ibadah is invalid, then in most cases it isn't going to be accepted. It isn't going to be accepted by Allah. Alright? As far as something being valid, does that mean that it's accepted by Allah? No. One could perform all of the shurut of the salah, the arkan, the wajibat, the sunan, the mustahabat, avoid the mawani', the mufsidat al-salah, makruhat al-salah, etc. But in his heart could be pride and arrogance. Or he may think he's better than someone. I made my salah better than you because I raised my hands like this. Or I've done this and I know this person, I go to this masjid. There could be something in your heart of arrogance or pride or looking down upon other people which will prevent your prayer from being accepted. So the prayer being valid does not mean that it's accepted. As Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma said, if I knew that Allah had accepted from me one act of prostration, I would be happier than to have everything in this world. Not one prayer. Sajda. If I knew for sure, if I could be at rest that Allah accepted it from me, that would be better than having all of the possessions of the dunya. So prayer being accepted and prayer being valid are two different things. Abu Hurairah's hadith says, the famous narration, لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. The literal translation says, when one of you passes wind, Allah does not accept his prayer until he makes wudu. But this hadith, as ulama have explained, is that word yaqbal is not literal. Yaqbal, accept. The hadith is basically saying your prayer will not be valid until you make wudu. And validity and the prayer being done in a proper way is the gateway to it being accepted. But only Allah knows what is accepted and unaccepted. May Allah protect us from our deeds not being accepted. So therefore, you have to make wudu before you pray. And if you forget, make the prayer again. You have to. And it's invalid without wudu. Wallahu a'lam.
A sister has never made up her missed days from fasting Ramadan except very few, 2 to 5. She has been Muslim 15 to 20 years. Fasting outside of Ramadan is difficult for her. What advice would you have?
Tell her to make tawbah, seek Allah's forgiveness. Tell her to ask Allah to accept her repentance. Tell her to give sadaqah. And if she has the ability to feed people, to pay an expiation, perhaps that's good. And if it's too much and too scary and too burdensome, then let her make tawbah and istighfar and move forward. Especially if it's 20 years, because that could discourage someone from doing the right thing. When you look at how much you owe. And this is one of the reasons behind, or you just look at a worldly example of a bank. You owe money. Something went wrong with your card or your account. After a certain amount of years, they do what? They absolve you of the debt. Do the right thing now, Kalas, that's done. That's out of the system. It's just too much. You couldn't pay the debt 10 years ago. What makes you think you can be able to pay it what? Now, and it's been collected and accumulated. That's a lot of money. And Allah knows best.
Assalamu alaikum. Is it halal or haram for a woman to cover her face bumps or facial flaws that occur with diet with makeup?
So, question says, is it halal or haram for a woman to cover up her bumps or acne or dents or scars on her face with makeup, etc.? First and foremost is, it depends on what you mean by scars or bumps. Something which is very unsightly is one thing. And a person could be scarred or burnt or have something really, really, really unsightly. One thing. Or the just basic human imperfection. Basic human imperfection. I have a bump here, I have this. Basic imperfection. And you look at me, you may say, well, he's not really handsome, but he's not like, you see what I'm saying to you? Something that's unsightly, which is abnormal. Everyone understand this? Everyone understand this or not? That's first and foremost. Secondly is where you wearing the makeup, in front of sisters or in front of brothers. with your niqab on and your niqab off. And when and how are you going to stop? Does it start off with I have these bad scars, so I want to cover it up, I'm very insecure, and then why not a little bit of, this and a little bit of that and this color and extra lip gloss, and where does it stop? Where does it stop? So we have to be mindful. The Prophet ﷺ gives us a beautiful example of stopping at the point before it's too late. Like driving. You don't wait until the last minute to put on your brakes. Even if you have really good brakes. What if the brakes fail? What if it's wet? What if it's slippery? What if your foot doesn't get all the way on the brake? You don't wait till the last minute. You give yourself some space between your car and the person in front of you because things happen. You give yourself precaution. The Prophet, he tells about the shepherd. And there's a pasture, a piece of ground, which is off limits. This is the king's property. The king's property. Or the noble's property. No peasant is allowed to take his sheep and goat on this patch of land. Everyone knows that. Anyone caught on this piece of land will be beheaded. Bottom line, or flogged 100 times. So the wise shepherd, he brings his sheep and his goat on the lawful piece of ground or patch of ground. And he does not allow a sheep or a goat to go anywhere near that gate. Because here is fine. But what is the guarantee that that goat will not jump and hop or see some grass, or the sheepdog see a rabbit or something and run after it, and the next thing you know, it's on the sacred pasture, the sacred ground. You're in big trouble now. So the wise shepherd, he keeps his animals far from coming close to the sacred area. There's a beautiful explanation. The beautiful explanation the Prophet, he gives us. He says, like a shepherd who allows his animals to graze near something which is off limits. Yushiku is nothing but a hop, a skip, and a jump, and that goat or that sheep will be over on the other side of the fence. And now there's no explanation. These are the rules. Anyone that falls on my property is going to get beheaded. But I know that, no, you were foolish by coming that close with your animals. Because you can't control 40 animals all at once. No matter how good of a shepherd you are. So you start putting on this makeup for this thing and for that thing and that thing, and the next thing you know, it's what? Full blown, alhamdulillah, a little extra lip gloss, green or black or this and that, it's not rouge, there's nothing wrong with it. And next thing you know, you're just totally caked up with makeup. And it can happen like that. So we have to be very careful when we start talking like this and mentioning these things. And then alhamdulillah, if you're pleased with yourself, then the people will treat you accordingly. And if you're displeased with yourself, the people will also treat you accordingly. And Allah knows best.
Is laser hair removal permissible? Other permissible means, such as shaving, irritates the skin. Would getting wax be one of them?
It's permissible to remove the hair however you want to remove it. When the Prophet ﷺ mentioned khamsun min al-fitra, 5 things are from fitra. From those things he mentioned, al-istihdad, natf al-ibt, plucking the hairs, shaving the pubic area. That is not the sunnah to do it in a specific way. That was the custom of the Arabs at the time. They pluck their hairs and they shave their hairs. If you use laser, if you use wax, if you use this or that, whatever gets the hair off of your body. Bottom line. So you have to understand of the vessel and of the actual drink. And oftentimes we confuse the two. The vessel is the stainless steel. The container inside is with the tea that I want to drink. I don't want to drink stainless steel. The stainless steel is not important. Whatever keeps my tea hot and whatever keeps it in one place, glass, wood, china, clay, it doesn't matter. What's important is the oolong tea inside. And that's how we have to understand the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And oftentimes we misunderstand it. This is nothing more than a vessel. The Prophet ﷺ's message was far too universal for it to be stuck with one matter or one piece of material. No, that doesn't make any difference. Like slaughtering an animal. It doesn't have to be with a knife. It can be with a sharp stone. It can be with anything which cuts the throat and removes what needs to be removed. The esophagus, the pharynx, etc. Everyone understand this? And there are hundreds of examples of things which we do not understand. And we take this as a sunnah. And it's nothing more than the vessel of Arabian culture from almost 1,000 years, 1,400 years ago. Of course, things change and things develop. So we have to understand the difference between the two. However you remove it, it's permissible. As far as wax, then obviously that is a more detailed discussion with regards to someone looking at your aura. Someone looking at your aura. Huh? And Allah knows best.
What are the harms of standing while eating and drinking or drinking?
Harms, you mean religious harms or worldly harms? As far as religious harms, then the Prophet ﷺ forbade the people from drinking standing up. Regardless whether it's only disliked or haram, but he said don't do it. And he drunk his hands in water standing up, alayhi salatu wasalam. According to many scholars, they say it proves that it isn't haram, but it's only makruh. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah and others, they say that it's haram to drink standing. And they say that the Prophet ﷺ, he only drank standing up because it was a necessity, it was too crowded. And the asl is not to drink standing up. As far as eating standing up and eating walking, then there's a bit more room in that. There's a bit more room in that. Al-Muhim is that obeying the Prophet's commands, whether it's obligatory or recommended. As far as health benefits or health harms, Allah surely knows best. People make arguments for it and against it. For it and against it. Allahu A'lam.
Thinking about inappropriate things during salat, such as sexual images and sexual violence.
You have to realize what you're saying. Allahu Akbar. Allah is bigger and greater than everything. Allah is bigger and greater than my desires and my feelings and this one and fulan and fulana. Allahu Akbar than wealth. Allahu Akbar than sports. Allahu Akbar than this game and that game. Allah is bigger and greater. So you have to be mindful of what you're saying. So you have to control yourself. It takes a jihad. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to fight yourself. The last thing that I'll say is a fact that has been mentioned by some of the people of the Quran, from the balagha of the Quran and from the ijaz of the Quran, as Allah says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Allah says the believers have won. The believers have succeeded. And they will be successful. Those who have submissiveness and concentration in their prayers. And those who turn away from idle speech. The ulama of Islam, they say there's no accident in the Quran. And Allah mentioned idle speech after the salah. Meaning that whoever avoids idle speech outside of the salah will have better khushu' in the salah. He will have better khushu' in the salah. Everyone see the secret here? Those who make an abundance of idle speech and jokes and this and that in the salah, the percentage and the chances of them having khushu' is slim to none. So the salah is going to be a reflection of what you do outside of the prayer. So you're always thinking about sex and sexual things and sexual violence outside of the prayer. If you don't stop it outside the prayer, it's going to haunt you in the prayer. So you yourself, you have to make jihadul nafs. You have to fight yourself. You're going to have to figure out why you're having these images and these thoughts. Is it something traumatic that happened to you when you were younger? That you need to be married, you're hypersexual, you're in an environment, you're around bad. Something is causing you to think and feel like that. And whatever it is, you need to pinpoint the problem and seek Allah's help in rooting it out. And Allah knows best.
If a person believes touching the private area nullifies your wudu, does that include the outer buttocks, like lotioning after a shower?
Some of the ulama of Islam, they say that the word dhakar or farj includes al-farjain, both private parts. Both private parts. And others, they say, no, it only includes the private part. Only the private part. Those who say that it includes both private parts, they differ. Some say the outer buttocks, if you touch it with your hand intentionally, your wudu is broken. And others, they say, is only pertaining to one's anus. The inner part, the actual farj, the hole, the opening that leads to your body. Just like you touch your penis or your vagina, which is your actual private part that leads to the internal part of your body. So try your best to avoid it. Scholars of Islam, they have different views on that issue. Wallahu a'lam.
No barakah in my time. 2 hours can pass and it feels like 20 minutes. I get very little done. Some things that seem like a simple task takes me forever to do. Advice.
First and foremost is be grateful to Allah that you can realize it. Be thankful to Allah that you know that you have this problem. Because there are many of us, we wake up and we go to sleep and we don't even realize that we're at loss. We don't even have an idea and a clue that we're losers with our time. The thought doesn't even come to our minds. It's normal life. To wake up, to go to sleep, to go to work, to talk, to eat, to drink, to play games, go on Facebook. That's normal. We're so desensitized. We don't understand the concept of barakah. So for you to know that you're lacking, and to know that it's something that you have to do, that's a good thing. Half of the job is there. Half your work is cut out. All right? Bid'night ta'ala, find out why you're not being productive. What is it? The people that you hang around, you like watching TV, you like listening to this, you like going here at this fancy special restaurant, you travel 30 minutes or 40 minutes, an hour to get an ice cream cone at a special diner or a special place. There has to be a reason why. Maybe change your environment, maybe change your friends, maybe change your occupation. It all depends on what's causing you to have no productivity in your life. You have to find purpose. And Allah knows best.
A child going to a father's house where they barely pray, watch an abundance of TV/movies, and listen to music. You don't want to prevent the relationship or cause resentment towards you. Not supportive of Islamic things, jokes, memes, group texts of nonsense, lacks hijab, boys, and doesn't financially support child.
Be patient. Whether you like it or not, that's your child's father. We realize this, that when you're married to someone and you get divorced, that person is a part of your life forever. You may think, oh, I'm not married to this brother no more. I'm not married to the sister no more. That means nothing. That person, you have children with them. They're with you forever. But you have to have sabr. You were with them, they were with you. You loved him at a point, he loved you at a point, or you lusted for him, etc. You have to have sabr. You have to be patient. You got to be patient with it. Give him advice. He's still your Muslim brother. Try to advise him. He needs advice as well. Maybe he's heedless. Maybe he's suffering from something. Give him nasiha. Adin on nasiha. Give advice. And most importantly, ask Allah to protect your child. Most importantly, strengthen your child. Educate your child. And lead by example. What you do over your mother's house, I cannot control. What you do over your father's house, I can't control that. That's not my house. I can instill it in you. It's haram to watch this on the television. You don't look at that kind of stuff. Muslims don't watch that kind of stuff. I can instill in my child, if you hear this, close your ears. I can instill in my child, it's time to pray. I can make dua for my child, but I cannot mandate what goes on in someone else's house. You have to have sabr. And this is from the problems and issues that come from divorce, that come from separation. You gotta have sabr. It's just that simple. Make dua for your children and try your best for you to be the dominant influence on your child. Try your best. Try to win over your child through the Islamic way. Your mommy loves you, such and such. Listen to me, sweetheart. You can't do that. Mommy doesn't know what she's talking about. Muslims cannot do that. That's haram. Try to instill it in the child's mind. Try to teach them. And most importantly, as I said, lead by example. And the child is going to have to choose him or herself. The child is going to have to choose which of the two paths they want to adopt. And if they adopt your path, which is the righteous path, alhamdulillah. And if not, it's not upon you. You've done your job.
Can you explain the concept of the Mahdi? Is it someone different than Isa alayhi salam? Also, Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. Is it correct that they are Asians? I recently realized that they may not be two people, but two groups of people. Details, please.
In brief, with the little bit of time that we have, the Prophet ﷺ told us about Isa coming. And he told us that many authentic hadiths about the coming of the Mahdi. The Mahdi is not Isa, Isa is not the Mahdi. They're two different concepts, two different entities. What they do, is it similar? Of course. Justice. The wealth being spread, people not accepting the wealth. And we've explained this, alhamdulillah, a few weeks ago in the khutbah, the importance of this hadith. Is that فَيَضْرُ الْجِزْيَةِ. It says that there will be no jizya. This hadith says, يُفِيضُ الْمَالِ حَتَّى لَا يَقْبَلُ أَحَدٌ. No one will take any charity because there's so much money. The only reason why it's so much money is because there's so much justice. That's why it's so much money. In other words, there's abundant money when? Now. There's tons and globs of money. But there's tons and globs of dhulm. selfishness. 10% of the population having 90% of the world's wealth. Something is seriously wrong with the world. Seriously wrong. And 90% of the people being in utter poverty, etc. So when they come, whether it's Isa or the Mahdi or this Muslim or this Mujaddid, whatever the case may be, there's going to be justice. More justice means equal sharing. Alright? As far as Juj with Majuj, are they Asians? Allahu Alam. How can I say that? I don't know. I haven't seen them. I don't know. I don't speak on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't know what race they're from. Allahu Alam. Are they Mongols? People say flat faces. Allahu Alam. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But what's important is that they're real. That's the bottom line. And just prepare yourself for it. If you're even alive during that time. And Allah knows best.
What are the proper and best times of each salah? Can explain the forbidden times and how we will apply them using our prayer app.
Every prayer differs from congregation versus individual prayer. If you're praying by yourself, that's one ruling. If you're praying in congregation, it's a different ruling. Salat al-Fajr. When Salat al-Fajr comes in, it's the proper time. You should, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, according to most of the ulama of Islam, make Salat al-Fajr 10 minutes, 15 minutes after the adhan. 20 minutes at most. Make the Salat when it's still dark outside. And the Salat should be read in a lengthy way, in which when you leave the masjid, it's relatively light. Al-Ghalas, Al-Tadlis. And some ulama, such as Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and others, they say rather the Fajr should be made when it's relatively lighter outside. That's Fajr. As far as the Dhuhr should be made when it's time to be made, unless it's extremely hot. Unless it's a congregation which you're delaying the prayer because it's very hot. Give it an hour or two for the heat to cool down and allow people to come to the masjid. But if in your house, there's none of that. You make it when it's time to make it. That's the adhan, you've made wudu, you brush your teeth, you use the miswak, make the sunnahs, you make the salah. Asr, as we previously explained, most of the ulama of Islam say Asr should be made as early as possible. As early as possible. And when you leave the masjid for Asr, the sun is still supposed to be piercing. It's still supposed to be blazing. And the sun is not supposed to be so low and so yellowy in which you can look at it and it doesn't hurt your eyes. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and his students, they say the opposite. They say the opposite. Salat al-Maghrib. Maghrib should be made as soon as it comes in. The adhan is made, make the 2 recommended rak'ah before Maghrib. Not the rak'ah after Maghrib. Sallu qabla al-Maghrib. Alright? Hadith Abdullah ibn Mughaffal in Sahih Bukhari. قال صلوا قبل المغرب. قال صلوا قبل المغرب. قال في الثالثة لمن شاء. هذا السنة. المهم. Maghrib should be made, and you should leave the masjid, and it should still have some light outside. It should not be pitch black dark. Salat al-Isha, the best time to make it is to delay it to the 3rd part of the night. If you feel safe that you won't oversleep and that you won't forget about it. As far as if you're in the masjid, then you pray when it's congregation. And Allah knows best. As far as times when you do not make the prayer, it depends. We have after Salat al-Fajr until sun rises. We have after the sun rises until the sun begins to go towards the west, it's zenith. You have after Salat al-Asr until Maghrib. Wahakala. Wallahu a'lam.
I never gave my child an aqiqah. Child was conceived in Zina. We got quote unquote married 3 months into pregnancy under a student of knowledge's advice. The father is Muslim, obviously, but not strong in his practice. I asked him to do an aqiqah for the child, but he never did, claiming that money was an issue. We divorced soon after. I always felt like my child was missing their haqq. Child is now teenage. Should I do the aqiqah, just slaughter without the gathering myself? Was it my responsibility from the gate?
Do the aqiqah, inshallah ta'ala. And if you can give some of the meat as a gift, and then you give some of the meat as sadaqah, and eat from it yourself and allow people to come up your house, then that's good, inshallah. It doesn't have to be a big grand feast, a huge banquet. Invite some close people over your house. If it's extremely embarrassing, don't even tell them it's an aqiqah. Come over. We're barbecuing some lamb. Wallahu a'lam. Sound hungry, right?
camel hump apply to this question mark? Can you give detail about this hadith? What about big hair under hijab or hijab in or outside of the house?
As far as the hadith about camel humps, the hadith that says, "Sinfani min ahli nari lam arahuma." Yarhamukallah. The hadith Abi Hurairah in Sahih Muslim. Two types of people that will be in the hellfire that I have not yet seen. And the Prophet tells about nisa'un, kasiyatun, ariyatun, ma'ilatun, mumilatun. Women that are clothed but naked. Women that are straight the path, and they push others to be misguided as well. Ru'usuhunna, he says their heads like the humps of certain camels. They shall not smell the fragrance of paradise, etc. Wa rijalun ma'ahum aswatun ka'adhnab al-baqari yadribuna biha an-nas. And people who have leather whips like oxtails, in which they beat and whip the people, etc. to the end of the hadith. That hadith, as An-Nawawi rahimahullah and others have explained, doesn't necessarily mean that a woman can't have anything on her head. It does not necessarily mean that. Some of the ulama, they say that this hadith means is that there was a description of women who were prostitutes and a description of women who wanted to be noticed and recognized by men. And in that time, that place, and that culture, that is what they did. They made huge, large, whirling turbans on their heads so they could look taller and bigger and be more noticed by men. That does not mean that a woman can't have a hair bun. That doesn't necessarily mean that a woman can't have a hairstyle which the hair is on the top of her head. It does not necessarily mean that. That's an incorrect understanding of that hadith. As far as outside of the household, then you shouldn't necessarily have your hair up like that or in a huge big bun. And many women, they make a mistake like this. All different hair types, whether your hair is thick or fine or curly or straight or nappy or whatever. You have your hair showing. You're showing people what type of hair you have. You're showing people of abundant hair that you have. And even if a man doesn't see your hair, he gets an idea that she has a lot of hair. And hair is a means of attraction. It's a means of attraction. So that should be avoided and it should be stayed away from. But that does not mean that a sister can't have her hair in some type of thing and she goes outside, she's covered. It's a difference. There are levels to it, okay? Wallahu alam.
Tawakkalullah, I have anxiety, worry, and grief. It prevents me from doing things and taking action.
Tayyib. Seek refuge in Allah from anxiety and grief. Read the Quran al-Kareem, in which Allah talks about the servants of Allah. لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا. And from the ways of getting this and not having fear and grief, إن الذين, Allah says, indeed those who say that Allah is our Lord, ثم استقاموا, and then they're upright and righteous, تتنزل عليهم الملائكة, the angels descend upon them and they tell them these things. So al-istiqama, doing the right thing, being observant, being steadfast, being righteous, is a means behind you being protected from anxiety. And it means behind you not being a victim of past grief and trauma. And you have to seek Allah's refuge. You have to let it go. Let it go. It happened. This person did something to you. It happened. It's gone. Don't continually empower them and give them the ability to press your buttons. If someone oppressed you, the most important aspects of getting over that hurt and that trauma and that pain is not to give them the power to continue to hurt you. They physically abused you 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and now you allow them to psychologically abuse you. Let it go. It's done. You're no longer in my life. You don't have that power over me no more. Khalas. Get rid of it. And not entertain the thought and sit and wallow in the trauma. And the same applies to fear, to the future. Allah takhafu. La khawfun alayhim, no fear upon them. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know. That's why Allah knows and you don't know. That's why He's the master and you're the servant. Leave it in His hands. Leave it in His hands. Many brothers, they say this, I don't know. So if you don't know, don't say nothing about it. There's no point you keep putting your 2 cents in and you don't know. Leave it in the hands of someone who does know. So Allah Azza wa Jalla knows what's going to happen. He's going to control it. He decrees it. No matter what you do and plan, it's going to happen according to what Allah wants it to be. So only a foolish man is going to stress himself out over something he has no control over. He's going to try his best. He's going to make his preparation, and that's it. It's going to be how Allah wants it to be. So you have to sit down and critically attack it. Wallahu a'lam.
A woman has stopped bleeding from her menses, but on the last day, she has a few brown streaks that comes and goes. Might see them in the AM, then hours will go by clean, then maybe a time or two again later in the evening. Is it permissible to use water douche to wash that residual blood/discharge so that she can return to her prayer and her husband?
Inshallah ta'ala, as long as the menstruation has stopped, she knows that in general that it's over, and a small type or drops or things of discharge of brownish or yellowish or different color, it's not menstruation bid'nillah ta'ala. Whatever you use to clean it and to wipe yourself or whatever, that's fine, inshallah ta'ala, but hopefully it's not menstruation bid'nillah.
A woman who hasn't been married for 7 or 8 years is afraid to get back out there and start sitting down. Advice. Now it seems like no better time, but she feels unsure of how or where to begin.
Like we just said, put your trust in Allah. Musa told his people, the Israelites, to enter the gates of Jerusalem. And when you enter those gates, you will be victorious, Allah says. When you enter the gates, you'll win. All you have to do is go inside. Let Allah do the rest. But enter the gates. And we know that they refused to enter the gates. They were afraid and they were cowardly. And they said that there are strong, big, terrifying people therein. You and Aaron go. You and your Lord go. We won't go. And we know what happened after that. They became lost and misguided for 40 years in the desert. Walking around the desert with no direction, nothing. So I don't find a better answer than that. Put your trust in Allah. No matter what happened in the past, Bismillah. Bismillah. And if you refuse to enter the gates of Jerusalem, quote unquote, you may be lost, wandering for 40 years out of your life. No marriage, no husband, no family, no children, nothing. Because you just refuse to enter the gates. Bismillah. Put your trust in Allah. You know what's going to happen. You can't keep treating people based off what happened to you in the past. This may be the perfect one for you. You don't know. You have to try it out. Bi-idhnillah.
I wasn't born Muslim, and I grew up in a house where there was a lot of music. I've tried hard to leave off music some years after accepting Islam as a teenager. However, I find myself still attached to music in some ways. For instance, if a person says a phrase, a song will come to my head. They put the whole lyric in here.
The whole verse, huh? Allahu Akbar. Ala kulli hal, seek Allah's help. And if you make a mistake and if you make an error, ask Allah to forgive you and keep moving forward. Bi-idhnillah ta'ala. If you fall 7 times, get up 8 times.
Praying at home without socks, long garment or not. Detail of making wudu over khimar/shayla.
You don't have to wear socks in the salat as long as your feet are covered, the top of your feet, according to some ulama. And others, they say even the bottom of the feet have to be covered. And some of them say that the bottom of the feet have to be covered without socks. Some of them say that a woman's feet cannot be covered with socks because socks are tight. And a woman's hijab is not supposed to be what? Make sense or not? Those socks, I can see the contour of your feet. See how things sticky they can become? It's not that simple. Sheikh Fulan did this. I'm not going to mention the name of the scholar who said that. La. It's not humbly make. Come on, Akhi, with the toothpick, man. It's not humbly. La. Al-Muhim. Cover the feet, bid'nillah ta'ala. Inshallah, cover at least the top of the feet. Bid'nillah ta'ala. When you make sujood, some say, yu'fa anhu. It's overlooked. And others say, no, the bottom have to be covered too. And it can't be covered with socks because socks are tight. So the question is, how can a Muslim sister stand on a garment, her feet are covered without socks, make sujood, get up without tripping and falling down? Can you, you're standing on your garment because it has to cover the top and the bottom what? Of your feet when you make sujood. I don't know him, if it's possible, play it. Allahu Alam. I don't think, that's enough for that. As far as the wudu on the khimar, then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, when a woman makes wudu, she does not have to make wudu like a man. Rather, a man doesn't have to make the specific wudu on his head. Front, back, front. You don't necessarily have to do that. It's not mandatory. And it's not mandatory for a woman as well. Come on, Akhi. Don't listen to the brothers and starting trouble in the back, man. See you. Yeah, no, not yet. That wasn't a get back. Get back is coming. Al-Muhim. If you make wudu, you don't necessarily have to start from the front and go to the back. Whether you have long hair or short hair. If you have long hair or your hair is going towards the back, only thing you have to do is what? That's it. That's it for a woman. A man doesn't have to do this and that. That's not mandatory. Especially for a woman who has a certain hairstyle. So if you wipe over your khimar, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, that's it. You don't have to come back with a khimar again. Everyone understand this? Go to the video, inshallah. Pull out your phone, it's on the live stream. Bi'idhnillah. At the end of the day, Jazakallah khairan, putting on a khimar, you don't necessarily have to have wudu when it's on your head to wipe over it. Like you don't have to have wudu when you make a wudu over a turban. You understand this? It's not a khuf, it's a difference. Allah knows best the harmony position. Allahu A'lam. Right, next question.
Is it permissible for a woman to get weight loss surgery, for example, gastric bypass, etc.? The person is overweight, nothing too crazy, 40, 50 pounds over, and doesn't have any serious health complications, yet the doctor warns of diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. The person that just doesn't like the way they look, and to be honest, may be suffering in their deen.
The ulama of Islam, they say getting surgery and changing your body is of two types. The first is to enhance your beauty, and the second is to li'izalati aib, is to remove an unsightly blemish. That can be internal or external. So if the doctor warns and forewarns of diabetes coming, perhaps it's maybe best to take the advice of the doctor. They do something to your stomach or your belly or something like this, gastric, etc. Perhaps, in which they minimize the size of the food that you can take in. As long as you can survive, you're healthy, you're strong, you have your energy, and you can perform your duties of the deen and of the dunya, it's one thing. Obviously, it's best to practice self-control, but that's not always easy. That's easy for me to say. I can't relate to that. I can't understand the concept of someone. I can eat whatever I want and not gain a pound. I can't relate to them. So I'm not going to talk about their situation. And it's something that we should be mindful of. Not talking about things that you can't relate to at all. It's easy for you to say. Simple for you to say on your living room watching CNN and BBC saying, oh man, they're crazy. Look what they're doing overseas. Why would they be in the streets protesting and throwing bottles? Why would they be throwing rocks at a tank? You're eating popcorn, drinking, relax. That's their country. Simple for you to say what they shouldn't be doing, but you live in a different world than they do. And as one brother said regarding the issue in Syria, he said anyone who takes a warm or a hot shower on a daily basis shouldn't say anything about Syria. He said don't say nothing about Syria if you have a shower and you take a 10-minute shower. Unlimited hot water. These people may be eating dogs in Venezuela as we speak. They may be eating dogs in the street. And you have Allah Alam, whatever you want to eat, and you tell them what they should and shouldn't be doing. You can't relate to their struggle. You don't understand what's going on. So therefore, if the doctor advises with it and warns against you having this excess weight, it doesn't have to be 100 pounds, 50 pounds, 40 pounds. You're overweight. It's too much. It's a problem you're breathing or walking, etc. Then perhaps it's permissible, whereas it's not necessarily cosmetic surgery. And even if it was cosmetic surgery, as we have explained, some of the ulama, such as Shaykh al-Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, cosmetic surgery is of two types: to enhance beauty, or to remove something which is extremely unsightly, and causes a great deal of pain and hardship in one's life. And Allah surely knows best.
Should I buy faceless dolls for my kids? Can kids draw people or animals with faces?
Faceless dolls would definitely be the best thing to do. Would definitely be the best thing to do. Action figures are extremely detailed. Extremely detailed. Is that the doll or the toy that is allowed in Islam? Many ulama say no. Alright? As far as drawing and illustrating, then teach the children to draw without the head connected and without the eyes. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Teach them that.
Is the Ibrahim said in both sittings of the tashahhud, is it correct to raise hands and fold them on the chest after raising from ruku'?
There's difference of opinion among the ulama of Islam. Inshallah ta'ala, hopefully there's nothing wrong with mentioning the first tashahhud and also in the last tashahhud. As far as when you make ruku' and you come out of ruku', should the hands go on the chest or by the side? Similar khilaf among the ulama about Islam. Do what you feel is best. Do what you feel is most comfortable for your prayer. Do what you feel is getting you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Both sides have their proofs and arguments. Both sides. Me personally, when I offer the salah, I put my hands down to my side after I come out of ruku'. Sami Allahu liman hamida, Allahumma rabbana lakal hamd. I put my hands down to my side. And I don't say anything about anyone who puts them on their chest. Wallahu a'lam.
Missing a prayer or two, is it better to make up or to pray what is on now?
It depends on what's now. If the prayer is going to go out soon, make the prayer that's in now. It doesn't make sense to miss two prayers. That prayer is going already. But if you have 2-3 hours before Asr goes out or Dhuhr goes out, make the prayer up that you missed. Make the Dhuhr up before you make Asr, without a question.
I have a 10-year-old nephew who is Muslim and has Muslim parents, but they are not diligent in instilling prayer and knowledge in the Quran in him, etc. He is known to lie abundantly and to be mischievous, and also had a problem with watching an abundance of TV, etc.
And it's your nephew? If that person is your nephew, you're responsible for him as well. You're responsible as well. If he doesn't get the correct guidance from his parents, you give it to him. Alhamdulillah, Allah has given you the honor and also placed the responsibility on you. You can't turn a blind eye. It's not my child. It is your child. A child is a broad term. The teacher can tell a student, you're my child. I'm responsible for you. Take the responsibility and the honor. Imagine if the child becomes righteous and grows up and practices the deen. You get all of those rewards.
How do we treat a person who has apostated from Islam? Do I allow our children to still be friends? I try to keep hope that bi-idhnillah she'll return to Islam one day if she is reminded.
Right. Obviously, there is no Sharia law here. There's no capital punishment here. So that wasn't even a part of the question nor the answer. Secondly is, some people should keep relations with this person, but not all. Somebody should always have the ability to talk with them and to speak with them. Listen, whatever you're going through, we're not judging you, blah, 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 blah. You can come back to the masjid whenever you want. You can call me, you can speak on it, you can discuss it. Sometimes if everyone cuts them off, they'll never ever come back to Islam. But that doesn't mean that everyone is just, happy-go-lucky with them and sit around them, it's okay. No, there's no lakum dinukum waliya deen. No, leave this person alone. Don't play with this person. She is no longer a Muslim. You're not your friend anymore. Sorry. It's just that simple. Especially if the person is spreading doubts about Islam and spreading their personal experiences about Islam. Monkey see, monkey do. Monkey see, monkey do. How many people have left Islam because of people on YouTube saying, I used to be a Muslim. I apostated. You have a shirt or the back of a car says infidel. How much money did that lady make from Somalia? Who wrote about what Islam is and how Islam oppresses and subjugates women and so on and so on and so forth. Right? Just like how many people accepted Islam because he used to be a Christian, it used to be, and so on and so forth. Monkey see, monkey do. So we have to be careful.
Is it wrong to eat while laying down in bed? i.e. in bed having a snack, and what are the etiquettes of eating?
I think everyone has a snack laying down in bed. Huh? Or pretzels or something, right? I don't know of any specific prohibition of a person eating laying down. If you mean the hadith that says La akulu muttaki'an, I don't eat muttaki', then that doesn't necessarily mean that. The ulama, they differ on what's meant by that hadith. Does it mean reclining, sitting back? Or does it mean with your legs crossed like that? And just because the Prophet says that he doesn't do it does not mean that it's haram. It does not mean that it's haram if he says, I don't do it. It may be makruh. It may be khilaful awla. That's not to, but it does not necessitate that it's haram. So therefore, if there's no specific prohibition of doing it, then do it. As long as it's not harmful to you. And as long as you're not in bed with someone who's going to freak out with crumbs and salt and stuff everywhere. Some people, they may have a real big pet peeve to sleep in the bed, right? And you roll over and there's crumbs all over you. Your wife may not like that. It's a reality. This may be a big problem, And you'll be surprised and shocked at some of the complaints that some sisters make about their husbands. Brother Carlin, you'll be shocked. The sister comes to the masjid, she calls, you'll be shocked. Some of the things that get under their skin and on their nerves, you'll be shocked. And those little small things, they do what? The next thing you know, what? Allahu musta'an. How many questions you have left? Which one is this? What advice do you give to women and families who want to attend IMFC but are afraid because they don't want to be publicly humiliated or ridiculed? What you mean, like being like a deviant? I know him. The question says, what advice do you give to women and families who want to attend IMFC, Imam Muslim Family Center, but are afraid because they don't want to be publicly humiliated or ridiculed? I would say is that if the fear of the people is the thing which makes you go to the masjid or makes you stay away from the masjid, then you have a serious problem with your deen. A serious problem. And before someone else becoming a deviant or an innovator or Salafi or this and that, what about a person being a mushrik in which you fear men like you fear Allah, as Allah tells us in the Quran? And from men are those when they are harmed and annoyed, they make the fitna of the people like the punishment of Allah. This is a phenomenon mentioned in the Quran. When they are harmed and annoyed, they make it like the punishment and the wrath of Allah. So, if you feel that you should come to IMFC to pray, to see the Muslims, and to benefit from some type of knowledge that's being handed out to you, then you should come. Regardless of Tom, Dick, and Harry, Jane, Sally, etc. And if you honestly feel in your heart that Imam Muslim Family Center is a place of deviance, and the people are du'at ala abwab jahannam, they're callers to the gates of hell. If you honestly feel that in your heart, and that you're going to be punished by Allah, then you shouldn't come. And I've said this for how many years now, Mufti? If you think I'm a deviant, that's fine. Wallahi. Don't listen. I commend you. If you're sincere, you honestly may think that. But if you feel that it's a benefit in listening and learning and studying, then you must do it regardless of what the people say and think about you. And what you give the people the ability to determine right or left. And you do things to please men and to please people. What does that lead to? All right? So we talk about Kitab al-Tawheed. We talk about Tawheed being the foundation of Salafiyya and this and that. Where is it at in practice? That's Tawheed. And there's a chapter in Kitab al-Tawheed regarding this. All right? So I think we have to check the basic fundamentals of Islam. Being afraid and scared of people. So why be a Muslim? Go back to being a Christian. Your mother, when you came home from jail, how did she look at you? I'm a Muslim. You're what? The first time you wrote a letter or you sent them pictures with a beard with your hand up. Keep it real, right? Or the 5, right? That's the jail picture. The kalima, right? Right or wrong, Mick? It's reality, huh? What did your mom say You're no longer a Christian. Huh? When you came home, how many people ridicule, right? Make fun of you. What you mean you can't have him no more? Or your ex-girlfriend, you tell her, I'm not a Muslim no more, we gotta get married. How many people made fun of you and ridiculed you? Or how many relations were cut by you being a Muslim? So if that's your rationale, you're afraid of being humiliated and ridiculed, you shouldn't be a Muslim. You should be a Muslim. So don't do anything for people. And don't leave off something for people. Do it because you feel that it's the right thing to do. And Allah knows best.
What's that ayat? I'm sorry. Mufti? The ayat that you referenced?
Which is that?
The ayat that you, in the beginning of your answer.
And from men are those when they are harmed and annoyed?
Yeah.
You gotta find it. I've given you more than enough. Reference that. Fadl. Students of knowledge have to be pushed.
What's the ruling on laying on the stomach while reading, typing, playing with kids? And if somebody falls asleep accidentally, should you wake them up?
I don't believe that the hadiths about laying on the stomach are authentic. I've researched them myself and read the speech of the people of knowledge regarding them. I don't consider it to be haram to lay or sleep on your stomach. If you believe those hadiths are authentic, then obviously you shouldn't do it. Lijat ahlillah. Wallahu alam.
A teenager who wants to pray by herself when at home. I don't want to infringe on her independence and development of salah. I can hear that she is praying, but should I force her to pray with me as a mother as well, knowing the benefit of praying in congregation?
Invite her to the prayer. Don't force her, invite her. Would you like to pray together? Let's pray together. Let's pray together. Invite her to it. Inshallah ta'ala, invite her. Open the door for her, bidnillah. If it's your child specifically and you're in control of her, then make her pray with you, yes. But even then, do it in a wise, inviting way. Wa alaikum assalam.
Is fragrant detergent and fabric softener the same as wearing perfume for a woman? What is a good way to determine if others can smell you?
No, it's not the same. It isn't the same. It's different. Unless it's something which is really strong, super strong. Normal, basic fabric softener and detergent is not the same as actual perfume sprayed on the neck, on the wrist, on the clothes. It's not the same. And the same applies to deodorant, and the same applies to lotion, and the same applies to body spray and things like this. Now, if you do it before you walk outside the house, that's a different story. You put on lotion after you get out the bathroom, after you make wudu and ghusl, that's one thing. You walk around, you get dressed, you do this, you pack your bag, that's one thing. Or you putting it on as you walk outside and it's strong, it's a different story. Wallahu a'lam.
Childcare providers using songs, Islamic nasheeds, etc., and things with images to teach children. Can one pray in a school where there are images?
Don't pray towards the images. Cover the images up. Pray in another room.
I learned that there are prohibited times of prayer. Can you explain this and how we should calculate this as well?
Mention that. We did that already. I think that stack is done.
What's that?
We finished that, right? I think that's done, right? Yeah, I think that's done. We're going to stop tonight with any questions from the brothers. We'll take a few from the brothers and maybe 3 from online, inshallah ta'ala. Fadl ya akhi. Wa alaikum salam wa ta'ala.
I wanted to add a reference to the hadith was Juma, for Juma that I went Friday. And it was talking about warning the people of the evil. Like warning the people, Imam, he made the reference of when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told Aisha, like this man, he's bad to his tribe. He's bad to his people. No. And Aisha said, he came and sat with you, but you was nice. You was nice with him. Mm-hmm. So like, why do you have the 2 faces? And Miss Charlotte, and he said, And no, the wisdom behind that, the imam that I was with, Mahmoud Al Hassan, he said, the wisdom behind that was that you warn the people about the evil, but then when they come to sit with you, you still have the best of character with them. You know, so I wanted, a little bit of wisdom behind that with that hadith to like kind of direct it, inshallah ta'ala to, direct me whatever about Bacardi or whatever like that, inshallah.
Tayyib, Jazakallah khairan for the question. Me personally, before I mention anything, to honor your request, you're a traveler, you're a guest, a brother in Islam, but definitely, always best to go back to the original source, the Imam who gave the khutbah. I know him, alhamdulillah. He'll definitely entertain your question. But in general, tonight, I would say, is that Allah Azza wa Jal, He talks about character in the Quran in so many different places. Good character. And from the most early and most basic teachings of Islam in the early Meccan period was good character. When they accused the Prophet ﷺ of being a madman or a wild poet or someone who's lost his mind and this and that and so on and so forth, the answer of Allah was simple. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. You're upon an exalted standard of character. Allah says, you will see and they will see. بِأَيِّكُمُ الْمَفْتُونَ. Which of the two is going through a fitna? You'll see who's mad and who's crazy. You'll see who's lost their mind. In time you will. One thing for sure is that you, O Muhammad, have tremendous standard of character. So the Prophet's character was the determining factor between what Quraysh said and what he was saying. Why would a man be honest, truthful, all of these years out of his life, and then come with such a wild and preposterous claim that he's a prophet, and an angel came to him and squeezed him and told him to read and recite in the middle of the desert? That doesn't make sense. When people say wild and crazy things, they normally have a history of this. Small or large. It's not the first time we heard Fulan talk crazy before. What night this, or he passed me his phone and something wild came up on his phone. But we're talking about someone who has an impeccable personality, known for beautiful character. And now you're coming and you're saying that he's making a flat, blatant lie on such a major public issue. Something doesn't make sense. This is what Allah Azza wa Jalla said about the Prophet to the Prophet, to prove that he wasn't a liar, he was not mad, and they were those who were lying and those who didn't have the proper sense. Khadija radiallahu anha, that's the first thing she said. He says, I'm afraid. I don't know what happened. This happened to me. She says, Allah will never humiliate you because you have good character, which is manifested in إِنَّكَ لَتَصِلُ الرَّحِمِ. You keep good ties with your family. You honor your guests. You do this for this one, for that one, etc. So good character is never something which is removed from any of the teachings of Islam, ever. On the battlefield, jihad fi sabilillah, and when someone's blood is lawful, you have good character. When you refute someone, and someone made a mistake, and you have to warn them against their evils, etc., you're still supposed to have good character. And you're not supposed to be someone who's nasty and vile. This is what was said. This is the proof that it's wrong from Quran, from Sunnah. That's it. What you look like, what you dress like, this and that has nothing to do with the refutation. It's immaturity. And it shows that someone isn't fully sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let alone being obsessed with someone and keep talking about someone over and over and over again. For that has been repeated for 10 years and you're still talking about him. Leave him go. He went to the hellfire already, according to you. Why are you still talking about him? What does how he looks and his hair and this and that have to do with anything? Good character. He made a mistake. He's misguided. This is the proof, this is evidence. Khalas, may Allah guide him. And the moment he comes back to the truth, he's our brother again. And he still is our brother now, because we're not saying he's a Kafir. Good character is never ever removed from any of the teachings of Islam. You divorce a woman doesn't want to be with you. It's still to be what? Good character. You deal with a non-Muslim, you still have what? Good character. So this is one of the most basic points of our Islam, which is from the furthest things in our daily lives. We don't have good character with each other. We get upset, we get angry, we curse at people, we hit people. We immediately lose our temper. Anything happens to us. And then we say we're trying to practice Islam, let alone follow the Salaf. And our character is of nothing to do with the character of the Salaf. So once more, every single thing that you do from the teachings of Islam is never ever separate from what? Good character. Everyone understand this? Now the Prophet, he taught us several things. People today, they talk bad and look down upon diplomacy. All diplomacy is not bad. Oftentimes diplomacy is nothing more than hikmah, wisdom. Wisdom. It's not what you say, but it's how you say it. The companion, he got up, O Messenger of Allah, ask Allah to make me from those people that won't receive any punishment, those who won't receive any humiliation, those who won't be taken into account, etc. The Prophet says, Anta minhum. He says, you're from them. And then another man stood up and he says, Ya Rasulullah, udullah an yaj'alani minhum. Ask Allah to make me from them. What did the Prophet say? He said, Sabaqaka biha kasha. He says, he beat you to it. Meaning it was only special for one person. He was the first one to come, Kalas, that's it. And he never said, you're not from them. You're going to the hellfire. You're going to be punished. You're going to be reckoned. He never said that. That today is called what? That's what? That's diplomacy. How you say it. What you say, using tact, using wisdom. So you may say something, but it's how you say it. And if you ever ask what is the definition of diplomacy, and this is one of the most beautiful statements you'll find, it said that diplomacy is to tell someone that they're going to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip. You understand? Diplomacy is to tell someone that they're going to hell in such a way in which they what? They look forward to the trip. That's a bit extreme, of course. That's an extreme example. But the point of it is clearly Islamic. And when you tell someone, no, you can't have this, you're divorced, you're no longer, so on and so forth, but it's done in a what? A respectable way. So much so that you may say, what? Wow, I want this. Once we were at a janazah, this was years ago, I don't know if anyone is here, was at the janazah, it was a few brothers, this was in the Camden Masjid, way before it was what it is now. Only a few people. And I don't want to refute nobody, wallahi, I don't want to talk bad about nobody. But this was back in the day when it was unpopular to go to that masjid, in which people were invited and requested to come and speak. And wallahi, they said, how many women are there? How many sisters there? How much money can you pay me? I don't want to mention no names, and Allah knows best. I could mention names and become very nasty and vindictive, but I'm not. I'm not. So back in the day in Camden, when it was a very small masjid, before the fire, way before the fire, small masjid, only a few people were there, and people refused to teach and do classes at that masjid. One day, a brother had died. So the brother, he came to the masjid, he was an older brother, he said, my son has died in prison. His name was Shukri, rahimahullah. He said that he played 12 games of basketball, and he went on the side of the court in jail, and he passed out and he died. And they've sent the body home. We want to do the janazah, can you help out? So obviously the older brothers at the masjid, they said, this is our imam, or acting imam. There's a lot of stuff that was going on with other brothers at that time. Perhaps you may know some of it. So obviously no one was around to do it, but good old what? Good old Mufti, right? Good old Ibn Muneer, right? So we said, no problem. So there was only the father, and the father wasn't the strongest Muslim. He was the old head. But you can see that he went through a lot. And he wasn't like, 100% there. But he still was in a fight. But he wasn't what? He went through a lot, that's all I'm going to say. And he needed our help. So he says, we're paying for everything, and we need to do it, and we can't allow the non-Muslims to have any involvement in the funeral. Because if they will become involved, they'll give them a Christian funeral on the other side. No problem. So it was me and 2 other brothers. We went to the funeral home, we washed the body, we did everything. The day of the funeral, of the janazah, we told all the brothers to come to the janazah. We're going to need as many strong brothers as possible. It's a big brother, a heavy brother. We're going to need to dig, and we need to bury and do everything ourselves. We don't need the Christian people, the Jahili people, to do anything at the janazah. So obviously only a few brothers came. Small, tiny handful of brothers. And it was raining that day. So it was maybe 3 or 4 of us. We had our own shovels. We carried the brother. We dug everything. They didn't even have the thing dug properly. We had to dig. We had to do everything ourselves. And his non-Muslim family member was standing around. So after we buried the brother, they asked me to give a talk. After, of course, we made the salah on him. We prayed over him. We took him to the burial ground, right? So asked me to do a talk. So I started talking about Islam and Christianity and so on and so forth. So before the talk, as we were shoveling, putting the dirt over the brother, rahimahullah, some of the brothers were starting to sweat and they were panting. They were running out of gas. Big brothers. So I'm saying to them, like, yo, man, come on. Like, shovel. How are you out of breath? How are you got all those muscles? You can't shovel dirt. Because the non-Muslims were coming up like, yo, let me see that shovel. Let me get that shovel. They wanted to take part in the janazah, and we tried to what? Bar them out. So as everything was going on, and before I gave the speech, it was a non-Muslim lady. I don't even think she was even related to the guy. She's crying. And she started crying and weeping. She said, this is so beautiful. Wallahi, I want you guys to do the same for me. And she was a kafir. She wasn't even a Muslim. But we did the janazah in such a way and showed so much sincerity and hard work that she wanted the what? The same treatment. Hikmah, how you do it? Telling someone to go to hell in such a way in which they what? They look forward to the trip. She didn't believe our beliefs. She didn't have our aqidah about death and resurrection and Isa. But she saw that it was something major that we were doing, and she was touched, and she said, I want this, I want a janazah. That's what she said. Can you imagine a Christian person saying, when I go give me a what? A janazah. It's a true story. So it's not about what you do, but it's about what? How you do it. How you say it. Using wisdom. And that's, alhamdulillah, one of the best and most important lessons that you learn from the old heads. Is hikmah, it's wisdom. Information is one thing, wisdom is what? Another. Knowledge is to know that a tomato is a fruit. And wisdom is to know not to put it in a what? A fruit salad. Fadl, next question. Clear?
Sheikh, when you're starting up a business, right, you got the 0% interest now that's going on with like business credit with like 12 to 18 months. But let's say you have the money to pay it off before the interest kick in. But you're just using that, 18 months to a year to manage, started, right? To get your business started. And you got enough, because we already know we can't do the interest, but we're gonna pay it off before the interest kick in. Clear. Is that inshallah, is that permissible to do that?
Clear.
Just getting started with your business.
Many ulama say, such as Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, that you cannot agree to any contractual agreement involving interest, even if you're going to pay. Many of them, they say that using a credit card is absolutely haram. Even though you pay on time, you're never late and there's no interest because you're agreeing to what? Do the haram if it happens. If we take that ruling, then there are many things that we can never ever do. So sometimes for a Muslim to have a halal business, he has to start his own, in which I can grow my beard. And there is no music, and there's no this, and there's no that. How can you do that if you don't have your own? And how can you have your own without insurance? How can you have your own in which every single contract has some type of agreement or stipulation about what? Insurance. So there is no doubt. One would say the lesser of the two harms is to do that. Is to take the most minimum amount, the zero amount, and make sure that you pay what? On time. And you don't bite off more than you can what? Chew. So inshallah ta'ala, hopefully it's permissible in light of the lesser of the two harms. Whereas the Prophet allowed the Bedouin man to continue urinating in the masjid. And what sin could be greater than that? It's to take the sacred mosque and allow someone to urinate, desecrating a sacred place. But he allowed it because stopping him in the middle of his urination would be a what? Urinating is harm too. But stopping it would be a what? 10 times worse. So it's a tremendous Sharia principle. Is when there's a must. You have to do one or two. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Choose the softer of the two rocks. Wallahu a'lam. Fadl in the green.
Is it haram to invest in a company such as Disney, say because they sell liquor at their theme park?
Similar to what we mentioned before. In general, when someone thinks about Disney, well, let's make an even better example. Let's say Champion sportswear, Champion hoodie, right, Mahdi? Right? Because I want to, that's why. I want a reference to you. Simple as that. But it's not bad, I'm giving you a shout out. At the end of the day, when you think about Champion clothes, what's the first thing you think about?
champion.
Clothes, a hoodie, socks, sweatsuit, whatever. But they may sponsor an event. They may hold a function in which there's alcohol and liquor. But that's not the first thing that you what? They're not known for that. It's not exclusive to liquor, and it isn't the only source of their income. Now you think about investing into Crown Royal, Canadian liquor. They also have functions for orphans. They have functions, they build basketball courts. They build swimming pools in colleges, and they donate things. But the first thing you think about is what? It's khamr. So it's a difference. Whether it's Disney or any other company, clear on that? It's a difference. Wallahu alam. La, not you, Nick. Fadda. You done. Fadda. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Is it permissible for a Muslim, male or female, to go to college, meaning to a university?
Is it permissible for a male or female to go to college?
No. Is that considered intermingling?
Many scholars say that it is. It's free mixing, and the free mixing is haram. Now, like we just explained, if Muslims don't go to college, what will happen to the Muslims? You can't study everything online. Some institutions don't accept an online degree. They look at it as a high school degree, as a joke. What do you mean you studied online? What professor can I call? What person did you see? So sometimes, not all the times. Sometimes it may be a necessity to go to school. Sometimes I said what? Sometimes. And not all times, and not for every person. Some people have no business going to college. They don't have no plan on having no career. They don't have no plan on opening up a store, opening up a place for the Muslims. They have no plan of doing things for the Muslims. They just want to go to college. Or their parents send them to college. And obviously they become a victim of college. Of drinking, of smoking, of partying, of this and of that. Not making salah, etc. So I think, and Allah knows best, in certain circumstances I said, not all, it may be a necessity. Also, we have to look at the Muslim. How many Muslims are actually practicing and doing everything and on the Sunnah and the teachings of Islam to that level? There's some people who are just making prayer, who are just doing a basic hijab, and you can't go to college. They're barely doing other responsibilities, let alone saying that they can't go to college. So I think there has to be a detail with regards to that ruling. And Allah surely knows best. Follow Nick.
Is it permissible as a ruling as far as like you already married Islamically, but then you want to go down to City Hall and put a contract? The reason why I'm asking that is like, you know how we done heard people in the past getting married and then Islamically, and then they might pass away, and then you got the family that come and might want to bury you.
Clear.
Christian.
Crystal clear.
So, but if you was to go down to City Hall and get married,
You have it documented. Clear. Crystal clear. There's nothing wrong with getting married in the courts, the civil marriage, or even a civil divorce. Especially if it's going to protect your rights and protect your property from being usurped and taken away from you. And for them just steamrolling your Islamic rights. All of the money goes to this woman. All of the money goes to this person. That's wrong. That's not right. There's nothing wrong with it. The only issue is that a civil marriage or civil divorce does not necessarily mean it's Islamic, common marriage. Just because you're divorced in the courts doesn't mean it was a proper Islamic divorce. Or the Islamic divorce was made and she's not divorced in the courts, so she can't get married. No, that's not true. You may go to the courts and get married, it doesn't mean it's the Sharia way. There was no wali. There were no witnesses. So the Islamic one is always going to take dominance over the what? The civil one. Allah knows best. Fadal.
Concerning the salat, when you want to like nurture your niyyah, your sincerity in the salat, and I don't know if it's authentic or not, but I heard a narration about one of the people of the past who, like, imagine like the hellfire on one side, the Jannah in front of him, and he was standing on the sirat. I don't know if it's correct or not, but is there any type of do the scholars speak about using any type of imagery, or like when trying to make greatness for you, make your niyyah,
Crystal
give
clear.
ta'zeem to your niyyah.
Crystal clear for him.
To enhance your.
At the end of the day, there are many athar of the Salaf al-Salih. And there lies no doubt. Many athar done by specific tabi'een, or even maybe some of the Sahaba, may not be supported by Quran and Sunnah. Or may even go against the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah. You find many narrations, this person was making salah, and this verse was recited, and he died immediately. Or he would shriek out loud. Or this one used to fast until his tongue became black and green. Or this person would ask for the fire to be made in front of him on a daily basis or whenever to remind him of the fire. Did the Prophet say that? Did the Prophet do that? Did the Prophet instruct us to do that? What was the ruling on fasting every single day? What was the ruling on making wudu and putting water inside of your eyes? Well, some of the companions used to do that. So an isolated and individual effort under any circumstances is a hujjah. It's not a hujjah. The hujjah in general is in the consensus of the tabi'een, the consensus of the Sahaba, what they did as a whole. But this companion said this, he did that, is not always necessarily what? A hujjah, a dalil. Clear on that? That's first and foremost. So the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad. To think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahu Akbar, min kulli shay. Allah is the greatest. That's your initial commencing of the prayer. Secondly is, with regards to what allows you to have the most focus and concentration, then that's going to differ, and that determines from person to person, different from person to person. You may have to think about Allah's punishment. I may be thinking about Allah's reward in the salah. But to make a specific image or imagery of it should be avoided, because that can lead to other problems and other issues. And if you yourself can't focus on the salah and focus on Allah and make it khushu' without some other foreign enhanced imagery, then that's something of weakness, in which you have to have something visual. The Christians, they can't think about Allah unless what? A cross is in front of them. That's a problem, right or wrong. The only time a person is conscious is when he grabs his crucifix. There is no crucifix. Allah is in the heart of the believer. Allah is on the mind of the believer, the hereafter, all of the time, whether I'm wearing an amulet, a necklace, or not. You understand? So you have to be mindful of that. But in general, certain things are permissible, and we don't make the permissible things to be what? Haram. Wallahu a'lam. Fadl Shaykh.
What does it mean to treat co-wives equally?
Tayyib. What does it mean to treat co-wives equally? First and foremost is, when we talk about polygamy, we have to understand, no, polygamy as well. Polygamy is valid English too. That's first and foremost. Now I know brothers, they say polygyny is only a one-way street. A man marrying multiple wives. From my limited research, you could be right, I could be wrong, but I've read before in authentic lexicons that the practice of a man marrying more than one wife is also polygamy, and it does not necessitate a woman marrying more than one husband. But for argument's sake, it is. For argument's sake, there's no need to say polygyny, because a woman can't marry more than one man, Islamically. The anatomy of her body, her mind, her heart, nothing about a woman is made to be with another man. It's not how it works. The nature of it is not how it works. She's pregnant with one child. She's menstruating. She's this, she's that. Everyone clear on this or not? So in reality, you don't always have to say polygyny. Because once you mention polygamy, as a Muslim, it's automatically what? Understood that it's one man with multiple wives. Make sense, Sheikh? And Allah knows best. At the end of the day, we have to understand the nature of polygamy or polygyny. It is not a system that's made to be apologetic. And it's not a system that's made to pat everyone on the back and kiss everyone on the hands or the forehead. It's not made to agree with everyone's taste and culture and view and opinion. And nothing in Allah's deen is like that. And that's why Allah, He mentions the rulings of divorce, of marriage, of buying, of selling. And He says that Allah is Azizun Hakim. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا. Allah is exalted in might and exalted in wisdom. Meaning, Allah has to apologize to no one because He's the most mighty. And Allah Azza wa Jalla doesn't have to explain to anyone because He's the most wise, even though He does explain to us. And He doesn't do things just because He's the most powerful. And He can't do it. But there's a wisdom to it. There's a what? A wisdom to it. And that's another major Quranic principle. The ruling and the names of Allah mentioned at the end of the verse. Everyone understand this? And if you read the verses about the halal and haram, 9 out of 10 times, the verse will be ended with one of Allah's names or attributes. And that's not an accident. Allah talks about this, and it says, Allah is knowing of all things. And your Lord knows and you know not. And Allah is Ghafurur Rahim. He's all forgiving, most merciful, pertaining to the beginning of the verse. So a polygamy or polygyny doesn't need to be apologetic to anybody. It is what it is. Why is it unfair? How can a man, how? It is what it is. And many women, they say it, I don't have no problem with it, it's in the Quran, but it's not for me. But, do you submit to the legislation of Allah or not? Period. There's no other explanation needed. Do you submit to it or not? Is your husband perfect in a monogamous relationship? Of course not. So what makes you think he's going to be perfect in a what? Polygamous relationship. So that's the top and the bottom line. For men and for women, it's the bottom line. Do you accept it or not? Secondly is, you can't love two people 101% equally from every aspect. Certain aspects, it can be on this side. Which of the two wives do you love more? When it comes to this, I have a better emotional connection with this one. When it comes to that, I've been with her longer and through more trials, etc. But one is absolutely equal with another 100%. It's not a condition of marriage. And we live in a time in which things are based off of convenience. And Islam is not based off of the most convenient situation. Islam is based off of the situation for everyone. The slowest person in the caravan is the speed at which we move, and not the fastest person. Not the fastest person. So therefore, Islam is made for a time and a place in which things aren't easy and simple. Don't we know that there was a time in which a woman will congratulate a co-wife, and she will be happy to have a co-wife. That's someone else to milk the goats and the cow and the sheep. There's someone else to sew and to make the carpets. There's someone else to breastfeed children and carry children and pick up children and prepare meals. There's someone else to tend to my husband's wounds when he comes home from jihad, to sew and to stitch up that gaping hole in his chest. There's someone else that's going to clean and scrub off the armor, the dirt and the excrement and the blood off of his armor. There's someone else that takes half of the workload from me, let alone being pregnant and his sexual desires. Just, he has another wife now, he doesn't have to come to me all the time when I don't want to give him his rights because I want to sleep or rest or relax. This is how things were then. Nowadays it's totally different. The world is different. But the wisdom still remains the same. The wisdom still remains the same. So therefore, marriage in general, polygamy specifically, is not based off of there has to be equal love. You can marry someone without loving them. And you can be married to someone without loving them. You may go to your grandmother and you tell her that you don't love your husband and you want to get a divorce from leaving, and she says, be quiet. Stay married to him. I was married to your grandfather for 30 years and I didn't love him. It's a reality. Am I making this up? And she'll tell you that. I never loved him. But I stayed with him. And we raised your parents. And look what happened. Look where you come from. So love is not a condition of marriage. Is it a good thing to love your wife, to be with your wife? Of course. We're not calling against that. But it's not a condition of marriage. Just like loving your children is not a condition. As long as I do right by you, I provide for you, I give you what you need, that's the only thing I have to do initially. I'm not talking about emotional support. That's a different story. But you have a roof over your head, son. You have clothes. You have food to eat. He may say, I don't know how to love. I wasn't loved by my father. I was beaten, abused. I didn't have a father, so I don't know how to give it. But I do work hard for you to have a comfortable life. So loving somebody is not a condition of marriage. A woman may marry a man and she doesn't expect love. I need someone to take care of me. She may have sexual desires. It doesn't have to be love. I need to do it in a halal way. It's not a condition. And oftentimes, there are people that you will overlook and you wouldn't marry, but you may marry them as a second or third wife. And there's no shame in that. There's no what? There's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. A sister, she may say, I'm not the best sister out there on the market, but I am a good team player. You have a team. You have first what? Your starters, then you have your what? It's reality. Can you win the games, without a strong bench? Because your starters get tired, and they get fouled, and they get injured. This is a hikmah of life. Everyone understand this? The Bulls, they didn't win that dynasty and have dynasty just because of Jordan and Pippen. There was Kukoc, there was Rodman, how many people were there? Everyone understand this? Fourth quarter. It's reality now. So this is all from the wisdom of polygamy. And it's not a condition that you have to love each and every one of them the same. That is not a condition in the Quran or the Sunnah. But you must give them equal time. And you must provide for them in the monetary sense equally according to their needs. If one has 5 children, of course the bills are not the same as one who has no children. But she has to have food and drink and the comfortable things as well. Time must be equal. Money must be equal. Sustenance must be equal unless there are stipulations that are agreed upon by the woman. According to some scholars. She says, you don't have to give me all the equal nights. That's unrealistic for me to want you in this place and that place. I know you're busy, but just give me whatever you can. Give me this time and that time and I'll be pleased with that and we'll make it work. Alhamdulillah. And it goes to show you the flexibility of the Sharia. The flexibility of what? Of the Sharia. It's flexible. And if it isn't flexible, then it can't be for every time and place. Certain things are not flexible. Certain things cannot be bent. Certain things can. You understand? So that's what's meant by being equal. As Allah clearly says that He hasn't given a man 2 hearts in his chest. In the 33rd chapter. Allah has not given a man 2 hearts in his chest. You only have 1 heart in your chest. But you have to be equal in those things. And Allah knows best. Here is going to be the end of our session. Jazakumullahu khairan. Alhamdulillah. It was my pleasure to come and to review with you and to study with you some beneficial things. We ask Allah to accept it from all of us. The brothers, the sisters, everyone who supported, who volunteered. We ask Allah to bless the markaz and to bless all of the brothers and sisters involved in running the markaz. And Jazakumullahu khairan. If I said anything which was good, then it was only from the grace of Allah. And if I said anything which was wrong or negative or incorrect or exaggerated, then it's from my ignorance and my deficiency. And I'm sure each and every one of you can find it in your big hearts to forgive me.
One more question off the record. One more question off the record. You drink your water, I want you to get dehydrated.
Jazakallah khairan.